Have you ever found yourself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart racing, mind racing, haunted by the shadows that seem to move on their own? Or heard a whisper when no one was around? Tonight, we delve into 3 stories that are not for the faint of heart. These are tales that will crawl under your skin, twist your mind, and leave you questioning what's real. Welcome, if you dare, to Thrilling Nightmares. In this video, we have 3 spine-chilling horror stories that you absolutely cannot ignore. Buckle up, because by the time we're done, you'll be checking over your shoulder, long after the lights go out. Before we begin, make sure you've subscribed to the channel, hit that notification bell, and join our ever-growing community of horror enthusiasts. And don't forget to leave a like if you dare to face your nightmares. Now, are you ready for a journey into the terrifying unknown? Let's begin with our first story. Story 1. The Whispering Shadows Dash. In the heart of a crumbling town, hidden beneath a veil of fog and decay, stood an old, abandoned house. Its windows were blackened with grime, the paint peeling like rotting flesh, and the air around it was thick with a sense of foreboding. But for one man, it was the perfect place to escape. Away from the noise, away from the world, away from the memories that haunted him. Little did he know the house wasn't empty. It had a life of its own. David, a weary soul who had fled the bustling city, found this house at the edge of town. It was cheap, run down, and seemed perfect for his needs. He didn't mind the darkness that clung to the house. After all, he was used to being alone. His first night was uneventful, until the whispers began. It started faintly, just a low murmur in the dead of night. He thought it was the wind, perhaps the house settling, but soon, the voices became clearer, closer. They weren't just sounds. They were words. "David, David, you can't run from us." The whisper sent chills down his spine. He shot up from the bed, his heart pounding in his chest. He searched the room, but there was no one, no sign of life, only shadows creeping in the corners of his vision. As the days went by, the whispers grew louder. They followed him wherever he went in the house, a constant presence, just out of sight. He tried to ignore it at first, thinking it was just his imagination. But when things started moving on their own, when objects shifted and doors slammed without warning, he realized this was no mere trick of the mind. One evening, while sitting in his living room, David noticed something he hadn't seen before. A dark figure standing in the doorway. At first, it was just a shadow, but as he stared, the figure became clearer. It was a woman, dressed in tattered clothes, her face obscured by dark, tangled hair. She stood motionless, her head tilted at an unnatural angle. And in that moment, David knew that she wasn't alone. The whispers reached a crescendo, and as David turned away from the doorway, he saw another figure. A tall, shadowy figure, its eyes glowing red, staring right at him. His heart raced as the room seemed to close in around him. The walls groaned, the floorboards creaked beneath his feet as if the house itself was alive. David tried to escape, but the house had already claimed him. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the hallways, until they became deafening. The walls began to close in on him, and his last thought was of the shadowy figures, their eyes following him, pulling him deeper into the house. A house that had been waiting for him all along. Story 2. The Unseen Passenger. It was a quiet night at the bus station, the kind of night where even the stars seemed to be hiding behind a veil of clouds. The only light came from a flickering street lamp, casting long, twisted shadows across the pavement. Emily had just finished her late shift at the diner and was waiting for the last bus home. She had no idea that this night would change her life forever. As the bus pulled up, she noticed something strange. The driver seemed off. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. But what really caught Emily's attention was the figure sitting silently in the back of the bus. A pale man, his face obscured by a dark hood. He didn't move. He didn't acknowledge her presence as she walked past him. There was something unsettling about him, something that didn't belong. As the bus began its journey, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The man in the back remained still, but his presence seemed to grow, filling every inch of the bus with an oppressive, suffocating air. The hum of the engine and the sound of the tires on the road were the only noises that kept her company. But then the whispering began. At first, Emily thought it was just the wind outside, but then she realized no one else was on the bus. It was just her, the driver, and the man in the back. The whispers seemed to come from all directions, growing louder with each passing second. The man wasn't just sitting there. He was watching her. "You shouldn't be on this bus," the voice whispered from behind her. "This is the last ride." She turned around, but the man's face was still hidden beneath the hood. As the bus traveled deeper into the night, the landscape began to change. The familiar city lights faded, and the roads grew darker, desolate. Emily tried to talk to the driver, but he was unresponsive. The man in the back never spoke again. He just watched. It wasn't until the bus made a sharp turn that Emily realized where they were heading. The streets had vanished. There was nothing but an endless void ahead. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and she felt a growing dread that she would never make it back. What is happening? Where are we going? Why can't I get off this bus? Before she could react, the bus came to an abrupt stop. The man in the back stood up, and with one final, haunting whisper, he said, "Welcome to the end." Emily's scream was lost to the darkness as the bus doors closed, trapping her inside forever. Story 3. The Haunting Reflection. Clara had always loved the charm of old things, the antiques, the faded photographs, and especially the mirror that had once belonged to her grandmother. It was an ornate piece, framed in intricate silverwork, the glass slightly warped with age. But Clara had no idea that this mirror would soon become her worst nightmare. She hung the mirror in her apartment, right above the fireplace, not thinking much of it. At first, it seemed harmless, a beautiful heirloom that added character to the room. But as days passed, Clara began to notice something strange. The reflection in the mirror was off. It wasn't her usual reflection. The woman in the glass looked different. Her eyes darker, her smile twisted, her movements slower. I thought I was imagining it. I even chalked it up to exhaustion. But the more I looked, the more I noticed. The woman in the mirror seemed to be trying to tell me something. She would mouth words I couldn't hear, and sometimes her hand would move, as if reaching out for me. But when I looked away, everything seemed normal again. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the strange occurrences didn't stop. Clara's reflection began to behave in ways that defied logic. It would follow her movements, but in a delayed, eerie fashion. When Clara brushed her hair in the morning, the woman in the mirror would watch with an unsettling gaze, her eyes narrowing, as if judging Clara's every move. At night, Clara would often wake up to the sound of faint whispers coming from the direction of the mirror. It was as if someone, or something, was waiting for her to approach. One evening, Clara could no longer bear it. She stood before the mirror, staring into the reflection of the woman who had become her obsession. The woman in the glass smiled, a slow, menacing grin that sent a shiver down Clara's spine. For the first time, the woman spoke, though her voice was faint and chilling, as if coming from deep within the mirror. "Clara, it's time to join me." Clara reached out, her hand trembling, her heart pounding in her chest. As her fingers touched the cold glass, everything went still. For a brief moment, she felt as if she were trapped in the reflection, a prisoner of her own image. And then, with a sudden violent pull, the woman's hand shot out of the mirror, grabbing Clara's wrist with an iron grip. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The woman's cold fingers dug into my skin, pulling me closer to the glass. The surface of the mirror rippled, like water, and I could feel myself being dragged in. My body fought against it, but it was no use. The reflection was real. She was real, and she wasn't letting me go. When Clara's friends found her the next morning, she was nowhere to be found. The mirror, however, remained on the wall, its surface smooth and untouched, as if nothing had happened. But if you look closely at the reflection, you might see a faint shadow, just on the edge of the frame. And if you stare long enough, you might catch a glimpse of Clara's face, trapped, forever watching, as the woman in the mirror grins. 3 spine-tingling tales, each darker than the last. But as terrifying as these stories are, they are only the beginning. The world is filled with untold horrors, and there are more stories waiting to be discovered. Stories that will keep you up at night, questioning the shadows, the whispers, and the things that go bump in the dark. So, if you enjoyed this chilling collection of terror, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone brave enough to face their own nightmares. Let us know in the comments which story haunted you the most. And if you have a terrifying tale of your own, we'd love to hear it. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that lurk in the places we least expect. Stay tuned for more, and sleep tight, if you can.